Burr Amendment number 1. This is an effort to highlight for my colleagues the need for parity in our tax code. Liquefied natural gas competes directly with diesel fuel as a transportation fuel for heavy-duty trucks. The federal excise tax on both diesel and LNG is set at 24.3 cents per gallon. Yet LNG has a lower energy content per actual gallon than diesel fuel. Therefore, on an energy equivalent basis, the excise tax on LNG is effectively 170% of that on diesel. Now, during a time where we have over a 100-year supply of natural gas right here, and wells that are having to close because they can't get rid of it fast enough, do we really want to discourage folks from making the switch to a cleaner and cheaper domestic product? My amendment's very simple. It aims to fix this by ensuring parity in the tax treatment of LNG and diesel. The bill that Senator Bennett and I have introduced, which is the basis of this amendment, would tax LNG on its energy content in accordance with that of a diesel gallon. Furthermore, this amendment modifies the alternative fuel tax credit in the same way, and I'm told by the Joint Tax Committee, it actually saves $10 million. Now, Mr. Chairman, I understand that this might be a topic more suited for a discussion with the Highway Trust Fund. So, given that I have your support, that the committee's intent is to, in fact, take up the Highway Trust Fund. And if I have the chairman and ranking members' commitment to work with those of us who want to try to achieve this parity, I would be willing to withdraw this and hold it until we do it in the context of maybe the perfect piece of legislation. But I do that with all hope that my colleagues recognize the lack of equity here and parity in our tax code, and that this is a wise move for us to make if, in fact, we want to move more and more vehicles to liquefied natural gas usage and away from diesel.
Let's let Senator Hatch go, see if Senator Bennett wants to comment, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this seems like a no-brainer. It takes 1.7 gallons of LNG to equal 1 gallon of diesel. Yet we impose the same amount of tax at 24.3 cents per gallon. Now, this imparity is something we have fixed both in the alternative fuel excise tax credit and the excise tax. And like the distinguished senator mentioned, has a positive $10 million gain in doing so. So I hope we're committed to dealing with this issue when we debate the Highway Trust Fund, which we have to do in just a few months. So I'll be there helping the senator from North Carolina and others to accomplish this.
You all are being too logical for federal policy, so I'm very interested in working with both of you. And Senator Bennett?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I want to thank Senator Burr very much for his leadership. As he mentioned, the amendment that he offered today and withdrew is based on a piece of legislation that he and I have been working on together for a long time. And it's true, the reason I got interested in this is that natural gas is a critical part of Colorado's economy, and we ought to be looking for new markets to incentivize the use of this cleaner, domestically produced fuel, and that's what this amendment does. The current situation, and as I've worked on this, I've realized how unjust and self-defeating the current tax code is on this for all the reasons that Senator Burr talked about. As he mentioned, the tax code discourages the use of our own domestically produced LNG as a vehicle fuel because its federal excise tax is 170% higher per mile than diesel. I know that people at home in Colorado and all across this country would rather we were consuming our own domestically produced energy, whether it's solar or wind or natural gas, than refined petroleum from the Middle East or other places. And this would help us along those lines. So I look forward to working with my colleagues, especially Senator Burr and the chairman and the ranking members. We get into the Highway Trust Fund discussion to see whether we can fix this inequity and actually be able to give a shot in the arm to an American produced fuel, in this case LNG. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Burr, thank you, and I plan to work very closely with you and Senator Bennett on this, on the Highway Trust Fund bill, which of course is also coming up very quickly. You and I served together on the Energy Committee, and we always said, let's try to get to a level playing field, and that's what you and Senator Hatch have talked about, and then to have comparable measures. So I'm going to work very closely with you, and I appreciate your not offering it today.
It's hard to put money into an investment when there is so little certainty that the rules will stay the same from year to year. Policymakers need to think through how to help provide a measure of certainty through tax reform. And I wanted to come today, as we move now to tax reform, having gotten these extenders out of the Senate Finance Committee, and say that my views with respect to tax reform and energy can be summarized in just 2 words. Those words are parity and predictability. And my view is you can't have real competition between energy technologies when there are such widespread disparities in both the incentives and their predictability baked in to the tax code. So let me give you a couple of examples with respect to the lack of parity. First, look at the competition between liquefied natural gas and diesel as a fuel for long-haul trucking. Each fuel has its merits, and ideally the tax code would treat them comparably and let the market decide. At first glance, they seem the same. Both are taxed at 24 cents per gallon. LNG, however, doesn't pack nearly the same energy punch per gallon of diesel, so it takes more gallons of LNG to go the same distance as it would on diesel. Taxing based on volume instead of the much more relevant energy content means that LNG is effectively taxed at a much higher rate than diesel, thus stacking the deck against LNG.